Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another predictions video on the channel today. And in fact, not just any predictions video, it's the first major predictions video of the day. Of course, this is the morning of the Daytona duel races at the Daytona International Speedway to finish up the qualifying for the Daytona 500. We have a couple drivers that have already qualified their way into the race. We have a couple more drivers that have to race their way in later tonight. And we also have the rest of the field just to set the lineup as a whole. We're going to go through the full prediction analysis for both dual races, look at the starting lineup, and pick the favorites, the drivers who will likely not to perform well, and possible underdog picks. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content as we get into this predictions video. First and foremost, we have to start off with the starting lineup itself in dual race number one. It was an all Hendrick Motorsports front row for this one. Kyle Larson qualified on the pole for the Daytona 500 last night. Actually, who qualified on the outside pole was none other than Alex Bowman. That has been something very consistent with him since moving into the Hendrick Motorsports role back in 2018. But as far as today's race goes, we have Chase Elliott and Ross Chastain in row number 2, so 3 of the 4 Hendrick cars will be at the front here. Daniel Suarez and Daniel Hemrick will line up in row number 3. And then we got Ryan Blaney, the first Ford in the field, in row 4 on the inside. Tyler Reddick on the outside. Brad Keselowski, Blaney's former teammate, going to sit right behind him in row number 5 on the inside line, with Chase Briscoe to Keselowski's outside. And then in the back half of the top 10, you have Austin Cindric and Eric Jones in row 6, Kurt Busch, Justin Haley in row 7, Cole Custer and Todd Gilliland in row number 8. Noah Gragson making his first career Cup Series start this weekend, already qualifying his way into the 500 in row number 9 with Cody Ware. Kaz Grala, BJ McLeod in row 10. Grala has to try and race his way in tomorrow night, and then JJ Yeley rounding out the field. If we look at the drivers that are in dual race number 1 that can perform really well, I think the expectations for Chevrolet are pretty high, considering that they literally start every car in the top 6. They have in the first 8 positions starting wise, only Blaney is the 9 Chevrolet in that, and they are outmatched heavily throughout the course of the field. More than half of the field is Chevrolet in dual race number 1. Really outnumbered is Toyota. They only have one Toyota driver in the entire 21 car field in dual race number 1. That would be Kurt Busch, and he's starting in the back half of the field. So if we start the expectations low, usually we start off with the drivers that aren't going to perform well. I don't think Kurt Busch is going to perform very well. He's outnumbered. There's no way for him to dictate exactly when the Chevys and when the Fords are going to come to pit road unless they try to organize something together. I would expect Kurt Busch to probably work with the Fords, considering the fact that the Fords are already outnumbered. They can get everybody they can, and a veteran like Kurt Busch would be great. The only problem is also Kurt Busch, although he has ran well in the duels, has not ran well at Daytona for regular season races. He has won top 10 in the last 9 starts at the Daytona International Speedway. The fact he's starting at the back, he doesn't have a teammate, he doesn't even have another driver racing for the same manufacturer as him in this race. I don't expect Kurt Busch to get a top 10 finish tonight, which, considering it's only a 21 car field, that'd be pretty poor. He obviously missed the Clash last weekend for the main event, couldn't make his way in, and qualified 25th last night for the Daytona 500 overall in the session qualifying. So I just do see Kurt Busch performing really well. The odds are very well stacked against him here to kickstart his first season with 23-11 racing, and with no help literally whatsoever in this race. I don't think he's going to get hung out to dry. I think he's got the speed to be able to, stay in the pack. He's not going to be like a, maybe a JJ Yeley or BJ McLeod at the rear of the field, but he is going to struggle to try to make gains. It's going to be hard to try and find help as much of a veteran as he is. He may pull out a line if they run single file in dual race number 1 to try and make a move at the end, and nobody's going to go with him, and he's going to fall to the back, kind of similar to how Denny Hamlin did in his dual race last season. So Kurt Busch is a driver to watch out for all the wrong reasons in this race. To go back to the drivers to watch out for, like I kind of mentioned, William Byron is actually my pick to win dual race number 1. I think the fact that all 3 Hendrick cars are 3 of the 4 are in this race, that is going to help William Byron out. He obviously has a race win at Daytona in the regular season back in 2020. He won the summer race there to end the regular season, and he's had good starts. I mean, he has a second place finish as well in the summer race before that in 2019. He also has 2 top 4 finishes at Talladega in the last 3 races there. He has a dual race win in 2020 as well at Daytona, so he did win a dual race 2 years ago, and he has also finished in the top 5 in the last 3 years in the dual race back in 2019 as well. So William Byron, I think, is definitely a hot pick. I think he is the best of the Hendrick drivers on the super speedways overall, especially in these last few years. When you look at Elliott, Larson, and Byron, to say the least, and really of the Chevrolets that are inside the top 3 rows as a whole, because Suarez, Hemrick, they have a lot to prove, obviously. Yet Ross Chastain, he tends to run up front, but he's a little too aggressive at the wrong time, so he'll have to dial that back down tonight. Who knows? But I think Chevrolet should be able to dominate this first race. The only drivers really for Ford that I could see running well would be Blaney and Keselowski. And then you got Cindric. I'm sure those guys would probably end up working together. Briscoe would probably hop in line with them. Keselowski's had success on super speedway, so has Ryan Blaney in recent years. They're just extremely outnumbered is the big thing here. Fords were pretty fast in practice, so I think that is something they have going for them. But you only have like 7 cars, even if you add Kurt Busch in there, you have 7 versus, what is that, like 14? It's not looking very good for them. So unless they can play the strategy game right, it's going to be really, really tough to win that first dual race for the Ford as a manufacturer. As far as the drivers who are underdog picks, for me personally, I think Justin Haley is an extreme underdog pick. I think he has a good chance to win this dual race. He's starting in the back half of the field. He didn't qualify as well as his teammate Daniel Hemrick, so that's a little bit concerning. He obviously had speed in the Busch Clash, completely different race, but he ran top 4 all day. Won his heat race there. Regardless of the fact, if we look at Daytona, he has a Cup Series win at Daytona in 2019, his only Cup Series win when he was running part-time for Spire Motorsports. He has finished 6th, 13th, and 1st in his 3 career Cup Series starts at Daytona, and that's all with either Spire Motorsports or Colleague Racing. So look out for Justin Haley in that aspect. And then when we look at the fact of his Xfinity Series stats at both Daytona and Talladega, it is extremely, extremely impressive. Justin Haley in his Xfinity starts at Daytona were 1st, 29th, not so great, 1st, 6th, and 2nd. So he has finished top 6 4 times, 2 wins. Talladega even, he has finished 6th, 8th, 1st, and 7th in his 5 career Xfinity starts at Talladega. He's an extremely great super speedway racer in the Xfinity Series. I expect that to translate over into the Cup Series side as well. Colleague Racing as a whole, they look like they have speed out of the gate this season, especially here early on at Speed Weeks. They run really well as a team overall, not just Justin Haley, but the team overall in the Xfinity Series. I think they'll be the favorites there, but as far as the Cup Series goes, I think they have a good threat, at least in the dual races, with the amount of Chevrolets in the race. So Haley could be a threat to win. My pick to win the first race, though, will be William Byron. As far as dual race number 2 goes, we'll look at the starting lineup there. We have Alex Bowman and Eric Almirola on the front row. Almirola won his dual race last year, so he's trying to go back-to-back. Martin Truex Jr., Denny Hamlin will make up the Joe Gibbs Racing row number 2. Harrison Burton, Joey Logano, a couple of affiliated teammates in row 3. Christopher Bell, Bubba Wallace in row 4. Wallace came close to winning his dual race last year. Got passed on the last lap by Austin Dillon. Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon, who I just mentioned, won last year's dual race, one of them at least, in row number 5. Michael McDowell and Ty Dillon will line up in row number 6. Kevin Harvick, Chris Buescher in row 7. Corey LaJoie, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in row 8. Landon Castle, Jacques Villeneuve in row number 9. Villeneuve has already qualified his way into the 500 based on speed and qualifying last night, so he will have an easy night off. Greg Biffle, David Reagan in row 10, and Timmy Hill will round out the field here. I do think that this one is maybe more stacked as far as the veterans go, but I think the lack of, I don't want to say talent, but the lack of super speedway talent is probably in this race. There's only really a few drivers that are halfway decent on super speedway statistically, at least looking at it, that I can say confidently are going to run well. Eric Almirola, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Bubba Wallace, pretty much that entire outside lineup at the start of the race. Guys like Martin Truex Jr. have never won on a super speedway. Kyle Busch, we know his bad luck at Daytona, especially in turn 3. And you also look at the fact for Chevrolet, for instance, Alex Bowman, so many Chevys are in the first race, he doesn't have a lot of help in this race. So Alex Bowman is actually my pick to not perform well in dual race number 2. for Alex Bowman. I know he's starting on the pole, but his dual race finishes have been abysmal. Just because he's starting up front in these dual races doesn't mean he is finishing up front in the dual races. He has started on the front row for his dual race in each of his 4, now make it this year, 5 full-time seasons with Hendrick Motorsports. He has finished 20th, 15th, 13th, and 14th. And the fact that it's only a 20 to 24 car field every time, and he's finishing outside the top 10, that's not great, especially with an HMS car. Alex Bowman just doesn't seem to have luck as a whole in speed weeks, excluding qualifying. He hasn't had great runs in the Daytona 500. I think he's actually only finished 1 Daytona 500 since joining Hendrick Motorsports, so I don't expect Alex Bowman to do well tonight. I would not be surprised, honestly, if he just kind of drops the back and takes it easy, considering he doesn't have a lot of help, especially if he gets racy early on, so that way he can contain that starting spot up towards the front of the field and hope that his teammates in the other race finish well, so that way they can all start up towards the front, work together at the beginning of the Daytona 500 on Sunday. I'm sure that will be the plan. We'll see how that goes, but my expectation is very low for Alex Bowman in this race. I don't think he'll get a top 10 finish and keep that streak going for him. As far as the underdog drivers go, he's an underdog in the sense he's only got 1 career Cup Series win, but he is not an underdog when it comes to super speedway racing, and that would be Bubba Wallace in the 23 McDonald's car. In his dual races, he has 4 career dual starts. He has finished in the top 6 in all of them, 2nd, 5th, 6th, and 3rd. He hasn't won a dual race yet, but he did win the most recent super speedway race in the Cup Series as well, and that was at Talladega in the fall. So it is looking very good for him. He also has a 2nd place finish in the Daytona 500 back in 2018 as well. He was fast all that speed weeks, finished 3rd as dual, and then qualified, I think, top 10 as well. Ridiculously fast all speed week long that week. I think he could be a contender for the win on Sunday. As far as this dual race goes, because I mentioned that there is really a lack of talent, a lot more Toyotas in this race. Obviously, only 1 in the first race. Manufacturer Alliance will work out well for Bubba Wallace. I know his teammate is in the other race, but he can work with Denny Hamlin. Of course, they actually start back-to-back as far as row-wise goes. Kyle Busch, Mark Truex Jr. all in the top 10 for starting positions. Christopher Bell is also in the top 10, so he'll have a lot of help in this race as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one leading the charge at the end of the race. But my pick to win this race is a man who has absolutely dominated the duels at Daytona in recent years. By far best statistical performances than anybody else in the dual races. I guess second would be Bubba Wallace, but Joey Logano is the favorite, in my opinion, to win this race. He starts up inside the top 4, and in fact, he has finished in the top 3 5 of his last 6 dual races at Daytona, including 2 wins, 2/3, a 2nd, 2 wins, and then a 9th in his last 6. That is just impressive, to say the least. He's obviously really good on the super speedways. He doesn't tend to win a lot of regular season races at Daytona and Talladega. He is a Daytona 500 champion back in 2015 as well, and he did have a win at Talladega, I believe, in 2018. So it's been a few years since he has won on a super speedway, but he seems to lead a lot of laps, especially in these dual races as well. He'll run up front. As far as my pick to win the dual race goes, it really is a toss-up between Logano and Wallace. I think because Wallace qualified a little bit behind Logano, and I know it's, qualifying, but Logano will have the track position. The problem is, though, is that although there are other Fords in this race, with the lack of Fords in the first race, Logano is really the only Ford that is actually in the top half of the field, really, in this race. You have to go quite a ways down to Michael McDowell in 11th. Is the next, well, I guess you have Harrison Burton too. So you got Harrison Burton, Joey Logano, the only 2 Fords in the top 10. Michael McDowell, of course, won the 500 last year. Kevin Harvick has had some great runs in dual races in recent years as well. Chris Buescher. I'm sure they'll all find a way to get together, but I would, for that reason, I think I'm going to switch my pick here at the last second. I was originally going to go Joey Logano, and in the middle of the predictions video, which might be a first, I'm going to actually change my pick. And I'm going to say Bubba Wallace wins dual race number 2. I just think, although Logano has help, he's not going to have a lot of help at the start of the race. And depending on how this race plays out, if it's more of a single file race than a racy kind of race, where they're running 2, 3 wide through the pack throughout, then I think that's going to play into Bubba Wallace's hand, considering his success on the super speedways in recent years. His really only challenger would be Denny Hamlin. Hamlin hasn't had the greatest of finishes in the dual races at Daytona in recent years. He does have a few dual race wins, but it's been a little while. And I think that's going to be his biggest challenger, to be completely honest, in this dual race. It would be Logano and Hamlin. I'm going to go Bubba Wallace. I'm not as confident with that pick. It really is a toss-up between Logano and Wallace, in my opinion. But I will go Bubba Wallace to win dual race number 2. So Byron, Wallace are my picks for tonight's race. Who are your picks? Comment down below. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. Once again, predictions videos coming from everywhere at Daytona. I am going to be in a different room the rest of the week than the room that you are seeing right now. So, but stay tuned. We'll probably have we will have some videos at the track as well, and race highlight videos later on tonight as well. As far as the dual races go, those will probably be up on the channel either late tonight or early tomorrow morning. Thank you everybody so much. I'll see you next time.